Hi, this is Des here with Civilian Beauty Grooming and Education, and per request I am going to be shooting a video on how to cut a one length haircut. So I'm going to keep this short. I'm not going to edit it, so I'm going to do my best job to keep it really concise and give just some basic foundational learning opportunities to create a really beautiful and sophisticated one length. If you have not watched my previous series, the Go Viral haircutting series that I put out a couple weeks ago, you can reference some of those videos. Many of those videos, they kind of build on each other. So some of the things we're going to be talking about today are lessons built into that haircutting series. So when cutting a one length, we're going to talk about really kind of the technical components of cutting a one length, and I will back this up so that you can see shortly. But what we're really trying to achieve is maximum weight in the bottom or the perimeter of the haircut. So I'm going to be leaving this mannequin relatively long because I think that that's going to be most commonly right now the haircut that you're going to be cutting. People are going to be growing their hair out. So this lesson is even for people who aren't really hairdressers, or maybe barbers who are wanting to cut their partner's hair at home or have some opportunity and just want to practice and grow their skill. So we're going to be leaving this a little bit longer, and what we want to try and do is maximize the learning opportunity here to just understand zero elevation. So I'm not going to go through the elevation chart that exists in an earlier video, and I'll be making another video about that. But what I really want you to understand is through this whole technique, through this whole template, the goal is to be using 0 degrees of elevation. So that's what the whole lesson is going to be about. We're going to be creating a square one length that is even from front to back. You can change that shape if you'd like. That's the shape that we're going to be using today. But the main purpose of this lesson and this tutorial is to teach us how to use 0 degrees of elevation. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on 3 things. How to hold your body, how to hold your comb, how to hold your scissors. All of those are included in body position. We're going to be talking about sectioning and how we're going to section the mannequin to accommodate for the head shape and to keep that elevation low or at 0 degrees. And we are lastly going to be talking about the distribution of weight of the hair. So we're going to be talking about how the hair is placed or where the hair is moving to as we're cutting hair. So 3 really important things to focus on: your body position, which includes the shear and the scissors, the position of the mannequin or the distribution of the hair, and also the sectioning pattern. Okay? So great comb management is a really, really important part of this technique. And we're going to start by putting a basic grid onto the head, which is going to include sectioning from, let's see if I can get this down, sectioning from, that's as low as it goes. Sectioning from the nose to the nape, and then just behind ear to ear. So I'm going to section forward. So if I have her squared up and I'm standing in the mirror, I'm going to place my thumb on the back of the comb and just go right to the nose. My mannequin is wet and clean. I think that always really helps when you're doing a wet haircut, to make sure that if you're using a new mannequin, making sure that it's been washed is really important. And something that I did forget to say at the beginning of this is what I think is best for you to do, especially with these really short videos, is to sit down and watch it one time, take some notes, and then come back through and watch it again while doing your haircut. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to flip her around, and I'm going to place my finger right where I want this section to move to. So I'm connecting what I've already created up here, I've got my pointer finger out and I'm gonna draw this line or sketch it right down the center, making sure that the teeth of my comb are not losing contact with the scalp. So on a guess, you don't want to push too hard because you don't want to cause discomfort, but it's really important that your comb is against the skin or your section won't work. And make sure that this is nice and balanced. Okay. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use the same technique to put in a section right around the mastoid bone. So at where the mastoid bone starts to turn, okay? So it's right at the back part of the flat spot. And one of the things you might wanna do is on your guess, determine which part of the hair is moving forward and which part is moving back. So when I kind of shake out, I can see right about here is where that is. So it's at the top of the back of the ear. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place my finger right there and draw in a section based on that natural growth pattern. That's a really helpful tool, looking for that natural growth pattern before you put in these sections. You may find that they're at different places on each side of the head. I'm gonna place a clip there just to keep things nice and clean. Not gonna twist or anything like that, but okay. And we can clip off this section as well. Just so it'll be a little easier for you to see those 4 sections. There we go. Okay, same thing over here. We're gonna look for where that hair naturally separates and comb down. So when we're using 0 degrees of elevation, it's really important to be aware of the natural growth patterns on the head, because as the hair starts to wave, curl, bounce, have a cowlick, it can change how the hair is sitting against the line that you are trying to create. And I think that sometimes we really want to create very soft lines and we want to kind of minimize the appearance of those because lines can look wide or things like that. But I think sometimes there is something really, really beautiful about creating that very clean line. And I think the technique itself just teaches us so much about the dynamics of hair cutting. So it's really, really great to practice and know. Okay, so there's a couple things. We've talked about this in some of our earlier lessons, but how you're holding the comb is going to be really important. So we've practiced this before, but I really want to make sure that you are comfortable holding your comb right in the center with your thumb placed between the fine teeth and the wide teeth. And you've got your 4 pointer, middle, index, and pinky finger kind of resting on top, okay? So you're gonna want that kind of balanced on your thumb and just a really light grip with your fingers through the top. Okay, and then we are gonna start by talking about the distribution of the hair. So what's really important to understand as we start to create a one length, especially if we want the shape to be square or triangular or get even a little bit longer through the front somehow, is if we notice the natural hairline of any human or any mannequin is low on the neck and then comes up and wraps around the ear, okay? So when we're creating a line that is even from front to back or even a little bit longer through the front, we don't want to follow the natural growth pattern of the hair, because if we do that, that hair is going to start to get shorter around the face. And a lot of times that can do some, especially at a one length, that can do some negative things for the face shape and for the bone structure, okay? So what we want to do is create a section that's going to accommodate for that hairline. So like I said, we're gonna create something that's even from back to front. So as I section this in, I am going to draw a section. Let me see if I can, a little tighter here. That runs naturally along the hairline, but maybe comes down just a little bit. And I don't want to create something that is in the shape of an A or that's very strongly diagonal, because that will start to get longer. We want it to be straight, but we want it to have that touch of a little bit of slant downward. Or even if we just said the margin of error, you want to be downward. Now I will tell you, the most important part of this technique is the section. So spend some time here. On most heads of hair that this technique is going to look beautiful on, you're not going to be cutting that many sections of hair. So take time with your sectioning to make it really balanced. Oftentimes I see people that will create something that looks sort of like this, so it's not even from one side to the other, or the shape is different, or it's just kind of messy, and they'll just take it up. You really want to make sure that your sections are clean and beautiful, because that it is going to make this technique really work. Okay. Here we go. There it is. All right, so when we're using 0 degrees of elevation, we want to make sure that we have no tension on the hair. I'm just kind of checking that line. We want to make sure that we have no tension on the hair whatsoever. So there's a couple ways that we do that. First and foremost, we're going to use the wide teeth of our comb, all right? So we're gonna be working mostly in the wide teeth. Second of all, we wanna make sure that we're not holding the hair in our fingers. It's really important that in order to have any amount of control over the hair, that we actually use those wide teeth and we don't kind of grab or pull on the hair in our fingers. And last but not least, Anakin needs to be taller for me. Last but not least, I'm going to really try to not disturb that hair once we cut it. So here's the thing about cutting a one length that is really interesting. You want it to be clean and you want it to have a lot of structure. So oftentimes it feels like you should have that structure while you're cutting it. But the feeling of cutting a one length, it feels stressful. It actually feels a little bit chaotic. And this is oftentimes when we talk about this technique, I spend a lot of time talking people through this as they're cutting it, because they just want to grab the hair and they just want to control it and they just want to create a really clean line. And that is not going to give you the effect that you want. When you have no tension on the hair, especially as it starts to dry, is going to move, it's going to change, it's going to look like it's uneven, it's going to look imperfect. But once you blow dry that hair, you will see that really clean, beautiful line start to come together, and then it will require some refinement in the dry phase. Okay, so let's kind of get after this. So I'm gonna stand right in front of my sections and be anchored here. I wanna keep my feet kind of wide. You can't really see my feet, but I'm gonna square up to my line, okay? And what we're gonna do, we are not going to tilt her head forward. We're not going to change the direction of her. We are just going to place the wide teeth of our comb in and our scissors, and we're going to rotate that scissor just slightly with the blade that's closest to us is going to tilt down just so you can read the writing on your shears. You're going to drop your thumb just ever so slightly so that you can get that hair to kind of tuck in. The comb is going to stay perpendicular to the hair, and it's just going to gently come in I'm going to step over to the side just a little bit. See me rotate that shear. There we go, okay? So that is my guideline, all right? If you are cutting on someone's back, you can just gently rest the teeth of the comb along their back and just ever so lightly bring your shears through, cut from center out and from outside in. But when you cut from outside in, you want to make sure, this is really important, that your shear is level and not up, because if it's up, this is going to be a different shape than this is. Oftentimes we'll cut from the inside and work our way out, back to the inside and work our way out, back to the inside. Either way is fine with me, but you really do want to pay attention to that. The other thing that you cannot do is you cannot check it by pulling down, because we didn't put any tension on the hair. So that's another really, really important piece. This is when you're going to start to want to feel like you're cutting with more control. All right, last lesson. As we drop new hair down and in, we do not comb the hair from underneath. We're going to let that line rest. Put in our new section and drop that hair in and over top without combing it, okay? So I'm just combing through the top very gently, letting the hair fall into what's called the natural fall. And I'm going to just gently place my comb in front of the section underneath. So I'm not going to touch that section underneath, and just let my shears ride right underneath that section. Now I am going to cut the inside back to the outside, because I do want to make sure that I don't get too short. Sometimes you have these long pieces that start to curl as the hair dries. Either re-wet the hair or just let them alone. It's better to not try to reach for hair and pull hair to trim it. Just let it sit. You can clean it up in the dry cut. And again, if you try to put too much control on the hair, you will start to elevate and get some graduation in there. Okay, so you can see on this long hair, there's not much on the ends. And so, you can hear my cats. And so I'm taking relatively big sections. The other thing that's going to happen as we get further up is we're going to start to grab hair that comes around the side of the head. I'm using my fine teeth to comb and twist the hair away, but my wide teeth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this hair so that it's placed on the back. I'm not going to walk around to the side until I'm ready to cut hair on the side. Okay? So when I do that, that hair is going to be traveling back just a little bit. That's all we want to happen. We don't actually want to use over direction. If we start to pull that hair back, then we're gonna lift it, we're gonna start to get the effects of graduation, and that's when you can start to see those long pieces of hair kind of sitting out longer than the perimeter line right at the neck. And a little of that will be okay and normal, but in order to prevent that from happening, you don't want to drag the hair back and elevate up. So you're just gonna comb this hair onto the back, away from the ear, ever so slightly, without combing the hair underneath. Okay. So again, coming in, you can see my line, go right underneath that. There we go. And in order to cross-check, you're just really looking at the line itself to make sure that it looks balanced. Again, not pulling on the hair and not elevating the hair in any way, because you didn't do that when you cut it. Okay, so same with this very last section, combing back down onto my guide without touching anything from underneath. There we go. You can see there's a few little pieces of hair hanging out. We're not worrying about that quite yet. Okay, so now we're going to turn our attention to the side, and we're going to do that by just turning our whole body and standing right in front of the ear. So I've turned my mannequin, and we're going to use the exact same technique, but we are going to add one more element, which honestly you can do on the back as well. If you're having some strong cowlicks, you're going to comb that down. You're going to comb this down. Again, now you're combing everything to the side where you're cutting, okay? And the only difference is we're going to give a tap to make sure that hair starts to expand over the ear. This hair is getting just a little bit dry, and so it's really nice and expanded. You can see that natural fall. And so I'm going to look for my guideline and barely be grabbing that hair. Okay. And just connecting that through. See that? Doesn't look like a line. Again, same technique. I'm going to take this hair, the next section, we're going to comb it down without touching the section before. All down and in, give a tap above the ear, and ride right along underneath. And 3 sections. She's got pretty dense hair, but because this is so long, we are quickly running out of hair to cut. And I have a feeling with all of our guests during quarantine, if you're cutting someone's hair at home, or if you are going to be doing this on a client, when we come back to work, their ends are going to be pretty scraggly. There we go. Okay. Other side. Tap, coming through, wide teeth. Let me just make sure this is all connected. Okay, now I'm gonna tap. Checking for balance. Tap. There we go. Really good. Next section. Nice clean horizontal subsection there. We're going to comb right from the subsection. Pull this hair down and over. And with the wide teeth of our comb, Gently controlling those ends. Now on shorter hair, I prefer to keep the hair really damp the whole time, but as the hair gets longer, I don't mind if I start to see that natural texture coming through, because I want this line to be very clean, and as it starts to dry, you can really see that coming out. And that is how you cut a one length technique. All right, message me if you have any questions. Let me know what you think. I will blow dry this and put a finished image up. Thanks so much. I hope you're doing well and staying safe. Have a great day. Bye.